card ladder.
Most grading companies use a similar scale for grading cards. The very best grade attainable by a card, which is used by companies like BGS and SGC, is the grade of pristine. The next best is gem mint, which is the highest grade that PSA provides. The next step down is typically mint, although SGC actually has a grade called mint plus that exists between gem mint and mint. And to complicate things even a bit further, different grading companies sometimes associate different numerical scores with certain grades. So for example, a PSA gem mint is associated with 10, whereas a BGS gem mint is associated with 9.5. So each grading company's website explains its respective grading scale, and that information is definitely worth reading if anything I just said sounds unfamiliar. Kristina, did I say anything unfamiliar to you there?
No.
Good. All right, so slabbed cards command a significant premium on the market. So for example, using Card Ladder's compare tool, I can see that the most recent sale of the 1996 Topps number 138 Kobe Bryant in the following grades are this. The BGS 10 Pristine Gold label is $16,000. The PSA 10 is about $7,000. The BGS 9.5 is about $2,600. The PSA 9, $1,400. The PSA 8, $680. And the Raw, $520. This means, for example, that if your Raw 1996 Topps Kobe receives a grade of BGS 10 Pristine, the value increases by $15,500 or a multiplier of 31. If it receives a PSA 10, the value increases by $6,500. Even if it grades a PSA 8, the value increases by $150. All right, let's stop here for a second. Josh, why does a BGS 10 Pristine Gold label bring nearly $10,000 more for this card than a PSA 10 Gem Mint?
Well, it's no secret that that card isn't rare on its own, but the grading scale and system that's in place and that you described is creating rarity within that card. So for someone to be able to say, I own, one of the rarest copies of this card, it's an iconic card, it's an important card for Kobe, but there's just a lot of them. And so for someone that wants to collect it or own it, they can then say, I own this incredibly rare version of this card in a pristine grade. Which I'm not sure that was the initial intention of grading. It's just sort of like the market has been created that way organically through this is what people want. They want the higher grades. And, this kind of exemplifies people buying the grade and not the card because, for a lot of collectors, you just want to have it mint in general. But in this case, you're actually taking it a step further and saying, no, it has to be absolutely perfect. It's got to be in the holder that says it's perfect, and then then it'll command the extra dollars.
Now, next question here to follow up on that. We've heard a lot about, and we've done a lot of research ourselves on the gap that exists between PSA 10 Gem Mint and BGS's equivalent, which is the 9.5 Gem Mint. Why does a PSA 10 Gem Mint of this Kobe bring nearly $4,500 more dollars than a BGS 9.5 Gem Mint?
I mean, that ratio has been growing over time. I think it's a perception thing at this point. The perception is that PSA is the superior grading company, that the PSA 10 is a superior grade to the 9.5. It would take some pretty heavy research to prove that a PSA 10 actually is better condition at the ratio that the prices dictate. And I'm not sure that would hold up. But I think to simplify it, like, people see the 9.5 and they see the 10 and they just rather have the 10. It's just simpler. It's easier for someone coming into the market to understand. I think that's the reason the ratio has been growing is more and more new people are coming in, and the less experienced you are, the more you just want the 10. Like you don't want to try to figure out the fact that they're both gem mint. You just look at the number 10, 9.5, 10's got to be better. I want that.
And it did occur to me as I was putting together some of the initial thoughts for this episode that this stuff is really kind of convoluted and complex in a way that as a first time, participant in sports cards, I would be, sort of scratching my head.
And the reason the next question is like, why is the BGS 10 then more expensive than the PSA 10? Because the BGS 10 is like significantly harder to achieve. There's always way less BGS 10s in the population than there are PSA 10s. So like at a certain point, the rarity does overtake sort of the perception and prestige of PSA, but still the ratios heavily lean towards PSA.
Definitely. And even a PSA 8, which is considered near mint to mint, still sells for 30% more than the raw copy of this Kobe. Why do you think that is?
I mean, that's an older card. I would say, like, in general, if you were to randomly select a card from someone on eBay that was raw on that, it'd probably be like a 6 or a 7. Like an 8 does command a tiny premium. On the really modern stuff, a PSA 8 is probably worth less than a raw, because in general, that's like below average. So people could just like, buy a raw and then potentially get a 9 or a 10 and like beat that 8. So they'd rather just like take the chance on the raw. But on that older stuff, it just depends on like how old it is, what's the average grade, if you were to randomly select a card.
Got it. Christina.
Yes.
Do you think that the market for a sports card should be so severely stratified that a BGS 10 can cost $15,500 more than a raw copy? Does that make sense to you?
I think it depends on the card. Like when we're talking about an older card, yes, of course, because like those cards have been in circulation for so long. The raws, if there are that many, like Josh said, that they're pretty low grades. But when you get a 10 of an old card, it's kind of like a unicorn.
Right.
Like even no matter what the pop is, like you're just like, oh my gosh, I got a 10.
Indeed.
Because
it's even tough to get 10s on modern cards.
Well, yeah, but it was especially tough. Like think
BGS
about
10s.
Yeah, think about like the manufacturing differences and like the way that technology has grown in the past 30 years. And you obviously apply that to how sports cards are printed and cut and packaged. So I think that, like, hopefully.
All right, now I have a question for you. Would you rather have a BGS 10 of a Luka, like the Prism base, which is rare? Like Josh said, it creates scarcity when you start tiering stuff by grade. Or would you rather have a lower grade or a raw copy of a more rare card? Grading scarcity or card scarcity?
Card scarcity.
And Josh, let me ask you the same thing. Grading scarcity or card scarcity? Which one appeals to you more, assuming price is constant?
You already know the answer, man. It's the card scarcity. I love a good PSA 9 of a super rare card, or BGS 9. Those are like the collector grades where you're like hunting and hunting. You need to find this card. You want to know that it's mint, and you want it slabbed, you want it mint, and you want to try to find that super rare card. So like finding that 9 of a super rare card is just like, it's perfect.